Good morning, happy Friday. Woodland Chronicles, week 12, I believe. One day I'm going to get that wrong. We're going to be kind of halfway through the year, or maybe 3/4 of the year, and I'm going to start getting my weeks confused. It's like staggering around in the woods all bewildered, not knowing quite where we all are. Now, Pluto's just moved into Aquarius. Now, that is so significant I can't skim round it. And of course, again, I will refer to Pam Gregory, the amazing astrologer and friend of mine who has covered this subject in glorious Ascension detail. So go and check her out and what she said. Now, my version of events is this is big. Okay, so the last time we had this particular alignment of the heavens was at the time of the French Revolution, and the historians, or the more historically kind of minded amongst you, will understand that during that period of time there was a huge upsurge and uprising, a reclamation of warrior energy and a restoration of balance back to the oppressed in relevance to their oppressors. Now, obviously, back in those days, the planet was very much in a third dimensional energy. So if something was wrong, what did you do? You gathered up all your villagers, got your pitchforks, got your torches, and you went and sorted it out. So what are we going to do? How's our response going to be formulated, especially on a planet that seems to have swapped its warrior energy in return for comfort and protection and the seeming availability of abundance and convenience around us? We live in a very different world now, and throughout this particular period of time, one of the greatest parts of the adventure is to reclaim the basic aspects of the composition of our personal heritage: divine masculine, divine feminine, and then all of the incredible light, power, unity, heart-centered consciousness from the cosmos that's coming in. So yeah, we have a realm-changing planetary alignment now. Now, when this transit occurs, I mean, we're only early days as well. It's not like the planets are going to change or Pluto's going to move into Aquarius and overnight everything shifts. That's not how it works. These kind of ingrained patterns of behavior and established points of, you know, dominance and political reality and everything, they need to crumble and be broken down systematically over a period of time. And the beautiful part about what we are experiencing, although on a DNA level we're very programmed to be ready for destruction. Okay, if you think about how societies have risen and fallen over the years, what would have been the best way to end an aspect of civilization, say 1,000 years ago, 2,000, 3,000, going all the way back to Atlantis 10,000 years ago? Things tended to get washed away, blown up, burnt, or iced over. Those were the kind of, you know, using our friends the elements to kind of put the power back in the hands of Mother Earth again, or whatever balance or restoration was going to be put in place. This time we're working to a very different tune. We're working to a fifth dimensional harmonization, a golden template. All along throughout this entire procedure, I've received a continual message over and over again that we do not face that imminent collapse. It's ingrained within us as human beings because we have lived and witnessed it so many times. If you cast your mind or your emotional body or your chakras back to the point of the fall of Atlantis, there was an explosion of energy that rippled around the world, including the kind of the rising of the waters, the shock wave. Every single living being, including the trees, the insects, the birds in the sky, the human beings, everybody was imprinted with that shockwave at the time. It was vast. So these things that we experience in these lifetimes, they get written into our coding, and that is what we've been clearing at the moment. So particularly in 2015, when I first started working with the Atlantean pathway, when all of these very powerful Atlantean energies were coming back to me, I met traumatized Atlantean after traumatized Atlantean. The first thing that we seemed to remember when we woke up was the fall of Atlantis. We either kind of like got washed away by the huge wave, we sank, we held the light till the very, very end, or we saw those that we love kind of taken away in one way or another, or we escaped by the skin of our teeth kind of thing. And that story played over and over and over again in the experiences of the people that were waking up, with me included. So at that particular time, and I've told this story before, I circumnavigated the fall. So I took everybody that I was working with back to Golden Atlantis, leaving out the big explosive traumatic bit at the end. And for the time being it worked. We, and still are, retrieving all of that spiritual heritage. But you can never dodge the bullet with these things. You can never kind of just hope it all just goes away. Shadow work is one of the most important aspects, and of course, as the vibration rises on planet Earth, as we move through what we're moving through, we've been clearing thousands and thousands of years of stored trauma, of shared templates of reality, things that we've experienced. You might even meet somebody on your spiritual pathway that lights you up because you have that soul recognition, that soul resonance, but it will also take you back to the point in time at whatever you experience with these people, whether it be good or bad. So that occurs after the initial soul flash, that recognition where you see each other and you know each other, you know there's a bond, and there's also a contract between the two of you to enact some process of retrieval, memory retrieval. So all of this has been going on for the last 10 years, but throughout all of this, there has been the strongest message of all that has kept me guided to this specific pathway, that we are not to experience that again. So all of this kind of disaster programming, fear-based messaging that we receive, pouring through the news, through the mouths of people that are kind of being taken away by and swept away by this tide, it has no relevance to what we're building unless we believe in it. Okay, once we start buying into the disaster message, the fear programming, we, the incredible, powerful creators that we are, then start to act upon the fear seeding, and we recreate this for ourselves. Now, the beautiful part about what's happening is that you and I are acting upon our guidance. We're all being guided very deeply. So even though we might re-participate in what's coming through just a little bit, but ultimately, if we're working to be in alignment with our heart centers, we get taken in the tide of the correct direction, which is raising our frequency, creating from a point of love, seeing and perceiving from the highest perspective possible. And I've never been shown a collapse. What I've been shown time and time again is a harmonization. So we take what we already have, what we've already created together, and move across everything that can be operated from a fifth dimensional frequency If it is truly a structure that belongs in the third dimension, then that is where it will stay, and it can no longer survive or be rebuilt at a higher frequency, because it is purely built, say, from an egoic perspective. So this is, can you see where I'm going with this now? We are taking what we've got. I mean, you can add heart-centeredness to medicine. You can add heart-centeredness to education. You can even, believe it or not, have heart-centered politics, because ultimately around the world systems are in place to control everybody. But if you have a group of people who are working together for the greater benefit of all of the communities of the world, then that becomes heart-centered. So ultimately, we're going to see, with this very powerful position of Pluto in Aquarius, the demolition or the alchemization or the gentle or not so gentle restructuring, so to speak, of all of the systems of the world. And it's happening now. This isn't something that we're going to say, oh, you know, 50 years down the line, that'll have changed. It's changing now. You and I and all of the other light workers around the world, we are at the driving seat. We're the ones who are in the position where we are taking what we can see from a heart-centered and a higher third eye perspective and rebuilding it. So again, and I beat this drum on a regular basis, create, observe, manifest from the highest perspective. Keep your light high, your frequency clear, and your manifestation sharp, regardless of what other people might be saying, regardless of what other people might be doing. You could be the one person in 500 that is anchored in your heart, and just because those 500 people believe what they believe doesn't make it correct. You stand in your truth at all times. You speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. That's where we are at the moment. Now, I got asked a very interesting question, and it's incredibly relevant as well. A lovely lady emailed me and said, well, if we are living on a planet that is completely, you know, surrounded by angels, ascended masters, benign extraterrestrials, all of these wonderful beings of light, how come the baddies are allowed to do what they do? How come we've got the kind of, maybe the example that was used is the kind of the weather modification, the things that are going around in the world, say the wars, the conflict, the potential attempts to crash various systems and implement other ones. And yeah, that's a legitimate question. It's a very, very good question. Why are these souls, considering that karma is now so real, allowed to do this? And the simple answer is because we still live in a realm of free will. Okay, we can still act upon whatever we are feeling, or a set of circumstances that have been put in place. At the moment, all of these very kind of visible, and they're going to become even more visible, situations that are acting against the, you know, they go against natural law. There's no other way to state it. The way that kind of the kind of the governing bodies around the world, the kind of the political setups, are moving to keep 3D in 3D, and have been doing so for a long time. The difference is that we can actually visibly see this, and we can see what they're doing now. And they're continuing to do so, and will continue to do so until they literally run out of steam. And the reason why that is because they still have the space and the vibration and the play. It's almost like a play area in which to play a certain way. But as we move through, particularly this next coming decade, as we move towards 2032, it's a little bit like sections of that 3D play area are shut off. And become unavailable to play in. And I think the way that we are moving, this is going to happen fairly quickly. It's just almost like the barriers are going to come up one by one. But for the time being, they all serve a purpose, and they serve a very much higher purpose. This ridiculous behaviour that we can see that comes through the media channels, I refer to it as the carnival, the circus, the 3D party. And you know, you can just see the kind of the behaviour is very, it's very similar to that. Once you can see it. In order to continue to wake people up, to actually show them so in such bright technicolor, vivid, to have such a vivid picture of it, it has to continue. It has to be uncomfortable. It has to be so obvious that it can no longer be ignored. And so for the having now got this particular position, the Pluto moving into Aquarius, it is going to be highlighted so brightly, so very brightly, that we're all going to be going, it's a countdown process. So while free will is still a factor on planet Earth, this behaviour, or these patterns of behaviour, will continue. Now, I've spoken about this before, and it's probably in one of my old video archives. What happens when we truly live in a 5D environment, sorry. So a fifth dimensional environment, a planet, a consciousness, we are the anchors for that 5D energy, okay? And from us radiates outwards that field, that chime, that everything else rises up. So you and I, we're anchor points. Obviously, the planet itself is rising in vibration, but we're kind of doing the moving structural work. So what happens when we're all holding the predominantly fifth dimensional vibration? Well, for want of a better word, we are going to be handing over that aspect of free will that was such a prominent learning facet during the third dimension. It's not going to be handed over in the way that we're going to be like, oh my God, I've given up my free will. It's going to disappear in a way that we don't even notice that it's gone, because we're operating from a point of heart-centeredness. I can remember teaching or speaking about this when I was visiting Finland for a workshop in 2018. And the lovely group that I was teaching were actually responded like, oh, I'm losing my free will. I don't like that. And the natural way to respond to that is, don't you dare take my free will. I'm not giving up my free will. You know, that's something that belongs to me. It's a choice. It's a choice that I incarnated with. But on a soul frequency level, when we are all vibrating at a point of heart-centeredness, when we're all cooperating together, when we're living in that state where ego is no longer in charge, we will have given up aspects of our free will simply because they won't even enter our consciousness to behave in that way. So we're giving up the lower behaviours, the behaviours that would separate one another, that would cause us to act in our best interest but at the detriment of another. But this is going to happen slowly over a period of time, very much like 10, 20 years. And as it's happening, as we're rising together, as we're harmonising at a heart-centred point of focus, we're going to be cooperating and working together in such a way that once we've handed over these old aspects of our behaviour, once we've worked with them, once we've cleared and balanced our own personal triggers and our traumas and all of the things that we're all working through at the moment, the lower actions and the more self-centered points of behaviour will no longer even enter our minds. It will simply drift away like a golden mist, a little bit like the lower structures that we can see acting in the detriment of the people all around us, and most certainly not just the people, but in the detriment of the planet. So ultimately, at a higher level, there is no room in a 5th dimensional template for 3rd dimensional egoic behaviour. And this is why at the moment all around us we can still see the kind of the carnival, the nonsense. It's still available, it's still visible, but that just serves to wake people up. It's there, it's allowed to continue for a purpose. There are mechanisms and souls in place that have been working with our planet for a long time now. And I've got to give Commander Ashtar a bit of a shout out here, because he's been the one with the Venusian fleet stationed around planet Earth that's actually managed to prevent Earth and everybody living on it from destroying itself multiple times. So it's, you know, we have them to thank for not letting the 3D learning space just blow itself up, which it could have very easily done on multiple occasions. And that set of safeguards is in place at the moment. So you might be hearing rumblings of conflict and all of the other, like the fear train kind of revving up for another kind of like pass through. But it's never going to be any more than something that is being used to attempt to bring the frequency down. Keep creating from the heart. Observe what you observe, but don't participate it on the frequency at which it is actually being enacted. Okay? So yesterday, Alice Heath and I put a video out for our event on the 4th of April. And we're going to be working with the Andromedans. And the focus is going to be, it's going to be a powerful workshop. We're going to be really working upon how to bring ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and on a nervous system level up to speed so that we can function at this much higher frequency that we're being presented with. So look forward to seeing you all there. Lots of love. I'll be back on Monday after the weekend. Hope you all have a beautiful one. Bye for now.